Three, two, one. What is up, everybody? You are listening, you are watching to the Constant Elevation podcast. I am your host, Gabe Rock. Already back in the cut, already ready for week 2 of season 8. Really appreciate the returning fans, as well as some new people who somehow, either by word of mouth or the internet, was able to find this leadership platform. So thank you for joining last week, and I'm already excited every single week. Already trying to figure out a way. It's probably going to be like one of those old school voice recorders. So I have about like a 20-minute drive between here and work, and so from my house and work. And so usually a lot of good ideas pop up in my head, but I can't like write it down or anything like that. So I need to figure out a way, maybe with those old school. I know I can do it on my phone, but my phone's, I'm not trying to, you're not supposed to do stuff on your phone when you're driving. So therefore, maybe I'll get one of those old school voice recorders. They make some modern ones like now, but I can do those as voice memos because I already have a bunch of topics on deck. Realized last week is a little bit more of a allow myself to reintroduce myself kind of topic and subject matter, but now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of some good old leadership topics that I think are relevant for our for bold leadership today. And so before we get into the leadership topic, a couple of life events, and this is usually how I start these shows, give you a little bit of insight of what's happening last week and what has happened going into this week. So as shared last week, I went to go see Deadpool Wolverine, loved it, huge X-Men fan. And so I saw it on Saturday instead of Sunday last week. We were able to go there early because our son Benjamin didn't have a job, but got an update on that. But awesome movie. It's a Deadpool movie. I understand like exactly what type of content and the presentation of all is going to be. I'm not looking for an Avengers Endgame kind of thing or Schindler's List. It's just a comic book movie, but the Deadpool method of presenting information and comedy and entertainment, it is what it is. I had a great time. We enjoyed it 10 out of 10, and I'm looking forward to the next stages of MCU. I will say I'm not necessarily... Okay, the other stuff that happened on Saturday. Awesome announcement of a Dr. Doom. Not necessarily a fan of RDJ doing that job, mainly because that's not a knock on him as an actor. It's just like, no, I'm going to have to train my mind a little bit. Like, I am not looking at Tony Stark. I'm sure there's multiverse ways of doing it. I have a feeling we're going to overcomplicate this. You could have made it simple by just hiring somebody else. But I feel like that was basically a Disney cheat code to just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to just repeat some old stuff and garner the people who have emotionally invested. Obviously, there's a large amount of us that are fans of the Infinity Saga. And so it's not going to be terrible, but like I would say that's more of a 7 out of 10 if I have to give a grade on it. So, and then finally, an update on the family situation. So Benjamin did get a job. He did get hired at the local Italian joint here in Rockledge. If you go to, it's called Baci, B-A-C-I. He's going to be working in the back of the house. Finally got got a job. He starts on Monday, so I owe him guitar on Monday, and he's earned it, and it's been taking up room in my closet. So looking forward for him to and hearing some of the awesome guitar sounds coming out of his room. So really, really great stuff happening on the family front. Okay, so my leadership topic for this week. So first off, there's going to be some homework. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, there's going to be a link in the podcast notes, or if you're on the YouTube channel, it's going to be a comment down below. And so there's going to be a link that you're going to do to talk about non-Newtonian fluids. I'll tell you right now, I might be speaking completely out of my element because I'm only going to get 60% of this right, but I know the intent is there, and I'll talk about the messaging in a minute. So non-Newtonian fluids. When I talk about how my new formation is, there's different levels of nerdery to this shit. There's definitely some different levels. And so I will give props to one of my teammates, Emily Pollard, very, very strong Schwarz commander. I'm very, very proud to be working with her at AFTAC. And so I give props to her for credit for kind of explaining some of this stuff to me. So non-Newtonian fluids essentially are fluids that you cannot actually kind of like pierce through. And part of it is because it's called the viscosity. So this is where, watch the link so you can actually understand what I'm talking about so I don't screw it up. Liquids that have high viscosity are very, very difficult. Think about something really, really thick. So when you watch the video, it's going to show this huge vat of water that actually has a bunch of cornstarch in it because that has a high viscosity level. And you're going to see this guy who's just running in place and he's just trying to affect his little feet are going beep, 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 really injecting really sharp points of energy towards his liquid, and he actually doesn't go through the liquid. He actually it's not like he's walking on water, but he's not sinking into the water. Versus liquid with low viscosity, like water, you can't actually, unless it's frozen, you're going to sink to the bottom, right? And so he did an interesting action to where when the person stops running and it just kind of stands in place, then he slowly starts sinking. Okay. And so what I had to gather, and someone presented to me, specifically Emily, said that our organization AFTAC is kind of like a non-Newtonian liquid. And I was like, I don't even know what you mean. And she explained that like it's very hard to interject change sometimes to an organization like this, especially if you're coming at it like the way I usually do, where I have a high amount of energy and I'm really excited and I want to help. And so it feels like this. If you see me running, I actually kind of run like this. And so that idea, while the intention is well placed, the actual execution may or may not actually work out to achieve your desired end state. So there is a way though that you can actually still, like I said, if you stop moving, and in my opinion, so what happens is if you're in an organization that is a very notorious for not accepting change, which is a large amount of organizations, could be small, could be large, any sort of team-based environment. If you have difficulty affecting change, possibly what you're trying to do, change as in trying to cut through the liquid and try and introduce a new element into it. Potentially, you're just doing it. Your approach is not wrong. Is just does not fit the environment. The way you can do it, and this is what I found that I'm actually implementing now, is be consistent. Apply consistent pressure. Apply consistent pressure. That's what we're looking for. And so what I mean by that is, I was trying to really, I'm very protective of my time. And so what happens is I immediately go into my job and I'm looking at my calendar and I'm like, where am I spending time? Where are the battle rhythm events? Where am I supposed to be at? I know I'm sort of at the adult table now. I'm at the adult table now. So what decision spaces do I need to make? Where am I part of the discussion? Which discussions are distinctly teed up for the boss to make? I learned about these kind of methods and governance products. It's not bureaucracy. In my opinion, it's actually how we can do consistent work as a team to stay synchronized, if you do it correctly anyway. And so I cut my teeth on that in my last job. So I understand the muscle memory is kind of here now. I'm just trying to adjust to the new battle rhythm for my next team. And what I found out is some of these things don't exist. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to try and make certain things exist. And I really attempted to try and solve world hunger. To be honest, I actually tried to look at the entire battle rhythm and try and influence every single event that I could, understand who was the principals, doing a lot of research. What I did find out is, spoiler, our team doesn't necessarily have everything. We're not aligned correctly. We don't always adhere to the governance and processes that we've defined. Some of our key strategic documents are potentially outdated and or have been superseded. So a lot of those key things I'm looking for don't exist. And so instead of trying to knock on every door, and it was really just inventory mode. And instead of driving change, what I did was making sure I take inventory of everything, but then find the nuances where I can still apply pressure. I'm just not trying to solve world hunger. So I found things related to the support group that actually I can affect directly and quickly because it's within my wheelhouse to actually affect change. I apply pressure there. So I've been doing my best to make sure I'm setting good examples and showing the benefits of this approach for this kind of small, nuanced topic, but then allowing and setting the foundation for additional topics to kind of pile in on it. That way we stay synchronized as a unit. I had a really successful conversation with my peers now, just kind of explaining my ideas. We're leading them to a senior leadership summit in September. And I strongly believe if we can organize some of these things, we can walk in there and basically show our new boss, like, hey, we've already talked and collaborated on these things, and here's how we think we should be optimally spending our time. Here's who's allowed to make decisions. We're going to try and do empowered execution at the lowest level, and then by exception, moving up the chain, but now there's a deliberate path on how to get there. Not everything goes up there. As long as we apply pressure at the right moments, we can affect change in this organization. And one of the biggest things we're looking for is how do we make consistent and empowered decisions? That's been something we've been struggling, and arguably maybe your organization's like that too. So if you're experiencing where just some frustration where you're just not making progress and you're trying to figure out a way to get to decision advantage, I think if you just apply pressure, understand your organization may operate like a non-Newtonian fluid. You just got to apply consistent pressure and you can actually get it done. Don't leave any teammates behind. You have to make sure you are, it's still a team sport. So you're not going Leroy Jenkins or anything like that. Stay consistent, stay persistent, and I'm positive you can affect change that way. So, and bring in some of your tools and experiences. Excuse me, I'm bringing some of the stuff I learned at ACC, some stuff I've learned through my PMP studying, some things I even learned in the CrossFit gym. There's a lot of stuff that I bring. It's like, no, this is how I believe it can work. And I'm able to kind of leverage everybody and really hold others accountable to make sure they're doing part of the job, but include them in the process and not be I want to be a positively disruptive leader, not just off the wall, kind of going crazy. So that was my leadership topic for this week. Again, most of my episodes are pretty short and sweet, maybe between no more than 15 minutes, no more than 20 minutes, depending on what I go on a rant about. But really excited. Again, there is you'll notice some of my content is going to be based on recent experiences that I have. And so I mentioned last week, I'm sitting as a group commander in the US Air Force. And so I have a little bit of that perspective. So depending where you're at in your formation within the Air Force, speaking of, one last, I should have said this earlier. Big shout out to all of the recent 17 Deltas that got recently selected for 06 promotion. Luckily, I knew a small handful of everybody that was on that list, a large list of great leaders there. I'm pretty sure I'm going to see them this month. Yeah, now it's this month, it's August, in Dafidic in Montgomery, Alabama, because this is how it works, right? The great leaders rise to the top, and I'm very sure I'm going to see them for circulation. I'm going to be glad to high five them because it's all very, very much well-deserved promotions. So congratulations to all the 06s, the new selected 06s out there. All right, team. So like I said, I have already a running list of topics that I'm going to be covering in the upcoming weeks. Even though I'm going to be TDY, I'm actually going to try and bring some of my my rig with me and see if I can do some content on the road. If it happens, cool. If it doesn't happen, also cool. Just wait till the next week, and I'm sure I'm going to keep on pumping out content. As usual, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe to the podcast. You can always find my content and additional show notes at constantelevation.co. That is the home site for everything that I'm producing. Again, you can have the YouTube channel, you got the podcast platform, and then more things will be releasing on there. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do a mailing list. I kind of want to, but I got to figure out if I want to spend my time doing that and if it's worthwhile for the audience. And so if you're interested in having being part of a mailing list for Constant Elevation, I'll be able to send you when the new episodes get dropped, other book recommendations, professional development things, CrossFit stuff, any kind of normal things that I'm just curious about. Happy to do that, but really only want to do that if people want to know. So go ahead and leave a comment either in the podcast or the YouTube show notes. And yeah, it's a fun time to be in the Air Force, fun time to be here in Florida, and I'm looking forward to everything coming up. So team, take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you again next week. Peace.